Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Imagine me sitting here thinking I was about to do the show, talking about the Liberals, NDP, and Bloc Québécois ganging up to defeat the Conservative amendment to the Liberal budget, and then we had another Conservative MP leave the Conservative Party, and now we have to talk about this instead, although we will be talking about the former topic a little bit later in this video as well. So, Conservative MP for the riding of Edmonton Riverbend, Matt Jeneroux, is leaving the Conservative Party. Now, he's not actually crossing the floor and joining the Liberals, and he's not even leaving the party and just sitting as an independent. He's just leaving Parliament. He is resigning his seat sometime near in the future, and then there will be a new by election to replace him in the riding of Edmonton Riverbend. In a certain sense, I actually don't see this as being an entirely bad thing for the Conservative Party. It's an easy way of getting fresh blood in a by-election, as well as Pierre Poilievre being able to test his mettle in an Alberta riding to show that he is still popular as the leader. I know he kind of did that in Battle River Crowfoot, but now he can show that even when he is not on the ballot in a suburban riding, that Conservative voters will show up and put people over the finish line for this version of Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party. But before we get into it a little further, I just want to remind you guys that, hey, if you like the show, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet a subscriber, and hit the notification bell, and leave a comment on what you think about all this. But let's go over to the letter that Matt Jeneroux had released himself to get his perspective on it, although I will admit many of these things that politicians release tend to be deliberately vague because they're never really going to tell you all of their motivations for doing things. Abigail Bimham from the, I think, CTV News The National has put out this letter that Matt Jeneroux released, and it says, "For those who have reached out, I am deeply grateful for your friendship and concern. However, I ask that you please not attempt to contact my family during this time. I ran in the last election hopeful that Canadians would put their faith in a team led by Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives, offering a chance to change Canada's perception in our own country and around the world. I want I wanted desperately to play a role in that vision. Although the outcome was not what I anticipated, I have great admiration for the many remarkable individuals who are elected in the House of Commons on both sides of the aisle who continue to dedicate themselves to the betterment of our nation. Their work gives me faith that the momentum towards a stronger and more unified Canada endures. With all of this in mind, earlier today I spoke with our opposition whip, a colleague and friend for whom I have the utmost respect, to inform him of my decision to resign as a member of parliament. It is not an easy decision, but it is better. But it is, I believe, the right one. I have hoped to have the opportunity to address the House one final time in the future. For now, my focus must turn entirely to my family and to the responsibilities that come with that." And then it's just signed, Matt Jeneroux, and that is it here. Again, this is not honestly the worst thing ever. This doesn't actually really affect anything in favor of the Liberals. Does it make it a little bit easier for them to pass things right now? Sure, technically now they only need if Matt Jeneroux just doesn't even participate in the vote on the budget and just resigns before that, or just starts being completely MIA from Parliament. Technically now Mark Carney's Liberals could just pass the budget with only Elizabeth May's vote in order to do it. They would just need her vote, and then the speaker would break the tie in favor of passing the budget. That would seem very shallow, but it's actually very possible right now, and it would give Elizabeth May the most relevance she's ever had. But again, this isn't like a floor crossing. It's not permanent. Within 6 months, there must be a by-election called in order to replace Matt Jeneroux in his Edmonton Riverbend seat. They could pick me, maybe. I'm kind of kidding. When I say kind of kidding, you always have to hedge your bets. Maybe someone does ask, "Hey, Wyatt, do you want a riding nowhere near where you live?" But anyways, now I'm gonna fully stop joking here. But this actually, again, does allow Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives to demonstrate that they're not just being able to tread water from where they were at back in April and win the seat back, but in a by-election that they could win the seat with 60% of the vote or more. Because this is one of those Edmonton ridings that in theory, the Liberals could win. And when I say in theory, I mean it's just not like a Calgary riding where the Conservatives win it by like 20 plus points. This is a riding where the Conservatives win by about 10 points. And so if the Conservatives run this by election and end up having a margin of 15 or 20%, it would probably show that the Conservative vote is coming back towards the Conservative Party. Those voters that they hemorrhaged towards the Liberals in the last election are willing to come back to the Conservative Party. And you could say, like, well, how did the Conservatives lose Conservative voters? They actually gained percentage of the vote in this last election. Well, yes, but while they gained votes, they also lost votes. There's pretty much no election where a party just comes in with 100% of what they had last time, plus some more. Usually, what happens is you lose a little bit, but then you gain even more. And what the Conservatives did was they actually probably gained a lot of younger voters who may have presumably been voting NDP or Liberal, and they especially got a lot of former NDP sort of trade union blue collar guys in ridings like Windsor, which is why the Conservatives went from being a third place party in Windsor that hadn't won, especially one of the ridings, they hadn't won one of the ridings since like the 1930s, to being, to winning it. They were third place before, and then they actually won it on the strength of winning youth votes, of winning immigrant votes, as well as the key demographic of blue collar workers who used to vote NDP. But now we can go a little bit more into the budget because this situation isn't actually that big of a deal. It's annoying, but it's something that will solve itself in time and may even give the Conservatives the ability to flex their strength in a by election. This is not like Chris d'Entremont, who just left the Conservatives and joined the Liberals with extremely petty personal reasons for doing so. This seems like a complete black box of a decision for Matt Jeneroux. I have no clue why he's doing this. Maybe he does just want to spend more time with his family. Who knows? But he's not joining the Liberal Party and helping them rule for another 4 years with a majority government. But, anyways, now let's move on to the budget issue because we had the NDP and the Bloc do something really stupid. They could have abstained from this vote. You are allowed to abstain in the parliament, but they actually joined with the Liberal government to defeat a conservative amendment to the budget, something that is going to actually be very helpful for the Conservatives in the future because they can say we were the only ones trying to reduce wasteful spending. We were the only ones trying to eliminate bad regulations. We were the only ones trying to give Canadians more of their own money back and reduce inflation. And they were given that by the NDP and the Bloc, not just not voting for the Conservative amendment, but specifically voting against it. We have here a National Post story that reads, Bloc NDP to vote with Liberals in first of three confidence budget votes. So all of the amendments being put forward, as well as the budget itself, is a confidence motion that you have to be one. I think only official parties can bring these amendments forward. So you're going to have one from the Conservatives that's going to get defeated today. And then you're probably going to have one from the Bloc Québécois. Remember, NDP is not an official party. And then you will have the final confidence vote, which is just the Liberals passing what they proposed. But this article reads, Ottawa, Canadians are not headed to the polls just yet. The Bloc Québécois and the NDP have said they will be voting with the Liberals, ensuring a majority in the first of three confidence votes on Prime Minister Mark Carney's first budget on Thursday evening. More specifically, they will be voting against the Conservative sub-amendment, which calls on the House of Commons to reject the budget because it did not bring down the deficit to the promised $42 billion in the last financial update and failed to include a plan to build more oil and gas pipelines. Interim NDP leader Don Davey says his party will not be supporting the Conservatives' motion because it calls for tens of billions of more in cuts to public spending. Quote, it's absolutely irresponsible. It's extremely right-wing, and it's not the direction the country should be going in, Don Davey said. The vote is expected to happen around 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. There will be a second confidence vote on Friday on the Bloc's amendment to the budget this time, which calls for MPs to reject it because it does not do enough for Quebec, in the party's opinion, and it does not have a clear plan to fight climate change. And then it just goes on from there of the Bloc having their own completely opposite reasons to the Conservatives for why the budget is bad. The funny thing here is that Mark Carney has put himself in a very bad position on the budget. Oh, there's my voice going on me. He's put himself in a very bad position on the budget because he has a budget that seeks to please absolutely nobody. If you wanted more fiscal responsibility and either were a conservative voter or you were a liberal voter believing that Carney was going to be more responsible, this budget with its $78 billion deficit and $54 million for deficit servicing alone, you are unimpressed. If you are on the progressive left in the NDP, the Bloc, or even part of the Liberal Party who thought Carney was going to be more progressive, you don't like this because there are too many cost saving measures that may end up reducing the amount of public employees working in Ottawa and Gatineau. And so you are unimpressed for that reason. There will be some people who like it, obviously, just as there are party loyalists who like anything that their government does. But in general, they ended up splitting the baby in such a way that I think sets them up very poorly in the next election because it gives the conservatives a clear, fiscally responsible, like a platform to be running on, and they can say the liberals have been irresponsible. And then the NDP, the Bloc, and even the Greens can then say that the Liberal Party has been compromised by conservative policies and conservative politics. So that's why we need, like, you should be voting for us and abandoning the Liberal Party because they betrayed you and they're acting too much like Pierre Poilievre, even though they're not. Like, again, the Liberals can pretend all day long that they're, reducing spending and they're being more responsible. But you can't say, hey, look, in our household budget, I cut down on the junk food budget by 50%. Yes, I did buy the Lamborghini, but hey, look, the junk food budget's down. You can't drive to places like in the Lamborghini with junk food. So the Lamborghini does have more utility than the junk food does. I'm like, okay, I understand that. I understand that you can do more with an automobile, even if it's a kind of a slightly useless luxury automobile, than with a bunch of Twinkies. But maybe we shouldn't be spending on either the Twinkies or the Lamborghini, because that is effectively what we have in this budget. We have $40 billion going towards a plan to build like a green, to expanding a green electrical grid across Canada. And we have a bunch of money going towards Carney's plan for modular housing, which will make very substandard housing probably over budget for what people are getting. So, yeah, we have the potential staffing budget going down for certain areas of government, but a lot of other budgets are skyrocketing. And I'm super skeptical that we're actually going to be seeing large layoffs. I think what you're going to see is large labor transfers where people are losing their jobs and then just going to the new departments and getting a job there. Or somebody in Ottawa is losing a job, but then we have public employees being employed in other areas of the country. Maybe it's a smart thing for Carney to do because it looks like he's creating jobs outside of his super safe area of Ottawa. But I don't think it's really going to be dazzling that many people when it comes like right down to the real results. I think right now we're actually in a very kind of unsafe period for the government because while I think that the NDP and the Bloc, I think the Bloc's going to abstain, but I think the NDP and then maybe Elizabeth May are going to push this budget through. The NDP are probably only voting for it, one, because they're a little bankrupt at the moment, and two, because they're going through a leadership race. Don Davies and the NDP could easily say, you know what? It's horrible that the Liberals are effectively forcing us to vote for such a bad budget because they know we're in a leadership race. But we vow there's going to be an election within a year because of this, original sin of the Liberal government. Forcing the NDP to vote for this budget is what is going to cause this government not to last a year. So I actually do see there being a good setup for having a spring election or even an election sometime in March or up to the spring or summer of next year. That could easily happen because one, Mark Carney's the type of guy, he really doesn't like having to work with other parties. He is very much someone who just wants to be able to unilaterally move and not have to negotiate. It's just his personality. The NDP also knows if they capitulate to the Liberals, their party is going to go extinct, just as it almost did under Jagmeet Singh's lack of leadership. And then the Bloc Québécois, obviously, because Carney is such a unilateral leader and doesn't want to have to talk to them, they know that the way they're going to get back at the Liberals is trying to trigger an early election and rip back a bunch of their seats because the Liberals are not pro-Quebec enough or whatever. So that's the current situation that we're in. This Matt Jeneroux thing, I think, is going to be one of those things everyone's going to forget about within 3 or 4 months when the by-election is called and the seat is filled by another conservative, maybe me. Again, I'm kind of kidding. I say I'm kind of kidding. I'm like fully kidding, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that'd be neat. Obviously, not going to happen. But we're going to fill it with a new conservative. The conservatives can test their mettle in an Edmonton by-election, and then the world will spin on, and we'll probably have a real election sometime after that. But uh, right now, with the stuff going on with the budget, I think that Carney thinks he's building himself like a new re-election narrative by doing all these investments. But I think this trick has been done too many times before by Justin Trudeau for it to be really effective. And these days, especially with the tariffs seeming like they may go away in the United States, there's going to be like no re-election narrative for Mark Carney to actually be running on. He's just going to be the guy who spent us into a hole, but had like some anti-Trump justification for it, even though the justification completely died off. He's just another spendthrift liberal. Anyways, so that should truly be the end of this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. Do all that fantastic stuff, and I'll see you guys all later.